So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. So I am the seventh of 8 kids in my family, so I'm one of the younger ones. But I've really, really valued doing things with my family. I've loved being able to get out and play sports with them, be able to participate in events with them. My family's really big into family parties and in creating recreational opportunities, and that's kind of where I grew my love for sports. I grew up as kind of a shy kid, but through sports I was able to really figure out who I was, make friends, develop leadership skills. And I've wanted to provide those opportunities for other people to be able to continue to develop those skills and be able to participate in things that they love to do.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So how did you find out about our job?
So I've been debating working for community recreation for a long time, and as a student from Utah State, I got hired for the intramural staff, and they talked to me there about working for campus rec as an alternative to community rec. So I'm looking at that as an option for
like the dark side.
the dark side.
Only dark side.
I've heard that a couple times from people at Tyrell over here at Utah State, but I don't know much about campus rec as far as the extent of the difference between campus rec and community rec. But as far as I'm aware and what I've seen, it's just providing those same opportunities just for a different environment and a different crowd instead of more families. It's more with those college kids, but it seems like something I'd really enjoy to do.
That's awesome. And you had, from your resume, it looked like you had experience in both. You've had past experience in campus reffing, is that right?
Yeah, so I was an official for campus recreation my junior year, and then the senior year I'm a supervisor for them. So I've been promoted and I help with training staff as well as creating those programs for futsal, outdoor soccer, flag football, basketball. So I've been helping them with those as well.
So you kind of alluded to this before, but I was going to ask, you've done a lot of both, sports in both realms.
Yeah.
What are the differences and similarities you've seen to date since working in reffing?
So one of the differences that I've seen is that in intramural sports with campus rec, you don't have quite as much of support from like friends and family. There are still some friends who come out and get kind of rowdy, especially with like the frat games and stuff. But you don't have to deal quite as much with like outside parents and getting involved in that end. It's more just making sure the event itself or the sport itself is working well between the players. So making sure your officials are trained well, making sure the players are satisfied. Where with community rec, it really is making sure the whole entire family is involved, making sure the parents are satisfied in the stands, making sure that they're comfortable, as well as making sure that your players on the court are getting the best experience that they can, because that's really what they're there for.
So thinking about the being more sport focused, what strengths do you bring to the table for that?
So sports has been the thing that I've grown up playing the most, so I'm very familiar with most rules for quite a few sports. I've umpired baseball, officiated soccer and basketball, as well as helped with flag football. So I have quite a few sports that I feel very comfortable with, and I feel like it's really beneficial to have as an official to understand how that works, so that as a supervisor and possibly becoming a graduate assistant, I can understand their perspective and understand what it's like, because you do miss calls as an official, and sometimes situations come up that you didn't get trained on, and you have to figure out how that process works. So I feel like I understand that concept really well, but I also understand the planning and how much goes behind that. That if you can plan it correctly and make sure your refs are trained to an extent where they can do things, and the programs are going to work really well.
Nice. And so in your new role where you're at now, what are the biggest challenges working with intramurals and working with students versus, and you can compare that and contrast it, but what are the biggest challenges you face to date?
One of the things, I am a recreation administration major, so I care about these programs where some of our other supervisors and officials are just there for a job. And they do a good job of making sure that they're there on time and being present, and they do a good job of officiating, but really getting that purpose behind it has been something that I've been trying to figure out, how to train so that they understand that we do have a mission statement, that we are here to provide a good experience for them. It's not just we're going to show up and get the game over with, but that we're going to show up and have a great experience of that that's something I've been trying to implement and trying to figure out how to get our officials to really care about providing that good experience rather than just get the game.
And what have you been trying? Like, what things have you tried, and what works or what hasn't worked?
So when I've been in trainings, they haven't brought up a mission statement at all. They haven't brought up like much about
To give a vision.
there hasn't been much about the vision of why we're doing it. It's more just been about trying to train the refs, which is very important. We don't have very long training sessions, so it's important to get into it and make sure that our officials are getting the training they need. But I do think that's something that I'm going to try implementing here in the future to see if like we can focus a few minutes on the vision, and as our officials are going, as supervisors, we give feedback. I think that's something I'm going to try implementing more, is talking about the experience overall instead of just how their officiating was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's one thing I really want to try.
Absolutely. So one of the things about coming here is we have these grad assistantships, but you also have to have a link or a tie to a department on campus where you're going to work on a graduate degree, a master's degree typically. What master's degrees are you most interested in working in? And have you already applied to any of those?
I have not applied to any yet. I'd be interested in looking at things like a recreation administrator, anything that has to do with sports administration, or what was the other one I was looking at was an athletic director position, something like that.
Okay, great.
But I would definitely be open to doing other things depending on what the university offered.
So something you know this from your work background, but conflict happens all the time, whether it's parents, whether it's participants, whether it's refs with other refs, or coworkers with coworkers.
Right.
Can you give us an example of a time you've experienced conflict in your career, and do you have a sort of a general philosophy on how you deal with that conflict?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer that you need to create that environment that's going to allow the person to walk away happy. So whether that means that you have to let them vent to you, then you're going to have to listen to that. But obviously there's a point where it does get too far and you're just going to have to cut it off. But I try to be, as an official, as a supervisor, I try to be listening, I try to be empathetic, to understand, I've played sports. I understand if a ref makes a bad call at the end of a game, it does hurt and you are frustrated. So I'm going to try to listen to that. I'm going to try to talk them through what I saw, try to listen to what they saw first, and then be able to see if we can reach an understanding with each other so that when we walk away, we are both satisfied with the outcome. And obviously you can't please everybody. You call that striker ball at the end of the game, like someone's gonna get offended at it. But you just try to walk away where people say, like even though we lost, at least it was a good experience.
Nice. Good. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes. So being a graduate assistant, what would like an average day look like for me?
Well, and probably with you knowing, having worked in recreation, average days are hard to describe because they vary greatly.
Right.
We try to be flexible we expect a minimum of 20 hours a week work. But that time is going to come all over the place. As you know, intramurals happen at night, they happen throughout the day, they happen on weekends. And so it'll vary as to how you and your coworkers decide to schedule those and how you're scheduling your staff to work those, because you will have a staff, but your day you'll be expected to spend time in the office with the other GAs and the other professional staff. You're also going to be expected that your employees will see you outside, and you'll have to sort of be dedicated. We don't force you to clock in and clock out at specific times because your schedule will be all over the place. So I guess there's a lot of variation in how you experience that. We also have staff meetings that we do require you to attend, that we try to work around your course scheduling as well as your work duties.
Okay. Awesome. So what are some of those like work duties, and like what's the training process going to look like for some of those?
So what we bring you in, we hope to bring you in at least a month before school starts.
Okay.
So probably the beginning of August, and we would prefer July to have people come in so you can work with the professional staff. You'll have a coordinator who's directly over you that coordinator responds to an associate director or an assistant director, depending on how, let's just say it reports to an associate director.
Okay.
And so you have a line of command, and they'll have different levels of training. So we'll train you on the policies and the mission of our organization in a large group training with the other GAs. But we'll also show you all of the things that have been done in the past and have specific trainings on human resource and staffing, because that's a big, you know how it is, hiring a whole new staff almost every year for your ref staff. So you'll have human resource training, both sensitivity training as well as the hoops you have to jump through here at the University of Utah to do that. We'll give you any first aid or update training that you need as part of our training here on campus. And then just generally helping you get to meet the people who are here. We have GAs working in athletic training who you will need to work directly with to schedule them to be there for intramural nights.
Okay.
So that's some of the trainings.
Awesome. That sounds great. And then just wondering, like, how many clubs and intramural programs is the University of Utah running?
50.
Okay. So quite a few.
Quite a few.
Okay. Is there like a certain one that seems to be like the go-to sport or the go-to club?
Flag football
Flag football's the big one here.
tends to be in the fall.
Some with co-ed soccer too.
Yeah.
What? You don't like soccer.
Okay.
That's why it's.
I think that's all the questions that I had. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and get to talk with you guys.
Great. And if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free. You have my contact information and reach out.
Okay.
Okay.
I will do that.
Thanks, Quinn.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're good. So